Hello everyone, welcome to the Power Academy. Here in this topic we will going to discuss that whether the Russia is using the Syrian forces in Ukraine or not. Because according to the Wall Street Journal, Russia is using them. But the no proof has not yet been unearthed by any agencies of the world, not even by the United Nations. As we know that Ukrainian conflict is getting complicated day by day. Now this conflict is being affected by the numerous external factors that cannot be denied or believed upon, because misinformation where has been broken out by some mainstream media houses, and obviously the social media is playing a bigger role in this misinformation where among those external factors, one of the most important external factor is proxy. As you know that the USA used the Pakistani ISI, the Pakistani intelligence agency ISI, as a proxy in the Russian-Afghan war during the 1980s to win the war against Russia. Now the Russia is implying the same thing in this Ukrainian conflict by using the Syrian urban warfare expert and the army. So that is why that topic has unearthed that whether the Russia is using the Syrian forces or not. The moot question is why the Russia wants to use the Syrian forces on the first hand. Because as we know, the Russia attacked the Ukraine on 24th February, right after declaring Donetsk and the Luhansk as an independent region. Russia actually used the United Nations article to attack the Ukraine, the same way USA used that article to attack the Vietnam, specifically the northern Vietnam, Iraq in the name of the weapon of the mass destruction, and also the Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. Now the war has dragged too long because of the tough Ukrainian resistance that the Russia never expected. Russia expected to end that conflict within a week, and that never happened. The President Putin is getting frustrated according to the news outlets because the Russian economy is facing the jolt due to the sanctions on its economy. And the Ukrainian capital Kiev is not yet captured by the Russian forces. We all know that the urban warfare is a very, very tough and the complicated battle to crack, because use of the snipers are very prevalent in this kind of battle. And recently a well-decorated Russian general has been killed by Ukrainian sniper, and that sniper took that shot nearly 1.5 kilometer away. So to capture the Kiev, the Russia needs the Syrian soldiers, those who are fighting against the Islamic State in the Syria itself. So that is why the Russia is using them. The Russia is there in the Ukraine since the 2015 in the support of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. When the Syrian civil war broke out, the Russia was standing in the favor of the Bashar al-Assad, but the USA was against them. That is why Russia is trying to recruiting the Syrian fighters on 6 months contract, and the Russia is paying the wages between the $200 to $300. This misinformation has been revealed by the Wall Street Journal and the Syria's news website channel called the Dire Azor 24. But the no evidence of the Syrian fighters had not been materialized by any nation so far. The United Nations is also taking the distance from this kind of pop-up newses because these kind of newses do not have any basis. The Russia has actually deployed the troops between the 1 lakh to 1,50,000 to capture the Ukraine, including the capital of the Ukraine, Kiev. The information that revealed that the Russia is using the Syrian forces, and according to them, those news channels, the Wall Street Journal and the Dire Azor 24, the Russian weapon firm, the Wagner, had been equipped its Syrian operatives who had served in the Libyan war on the sides of the General Khalifa Haftar, and those forces had been transferred to the Ukraine. These are the news is according to those news channels. The WSJ, the Wall Street Journal, has came up with an information that the Russia is using the Chechen forces to assassinate the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. The assassination is not a right thing the Russia is actually banking upon. But if the Russia is using the Chechen forces in the Ukrainian war, that is not an illegal offense, because The Chechnya is the part of the Russia, and the Russia has the right to use those forces, but the conducting something which is very illegal, like assassinations, is not, it's not acceptable. The rumors were also that there are 20,000 people from the 52 countries who are willing to come up to the Ukraine to fight for the Ukrainian side, to fight for the Ukraine. And that news might be true because the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that over 16,000 foreign fighters have volunteered to defend the Ukraine, and the calling it an international legion. That is why that news had came up, that the Ukrainian people, those who were living in the European countries, those who were living in the USA or any of the Northern American countries or any part of the world, wants to come to the Ukraine and the fight in the favor of the Ukrainian forces against the Russia. And the question is whether Russia is doing the right in including the Syrian forces or not. If they are really including them, because the no proof has not been unearthed yet. There are two aspects to discuss these questions. One is yes and the another is no. The first thing we will going to discuss that why no. No, because by involving the Syrian fighters will make this conflict internationalized, when the real truth will come out of the dark. The Syrian forces or the troops means the Syria is directly involved in this Ukrainian conflict, which Syria cannot afford right now. The reason is that the Syria is already reeling under the civil war within its own country. If the Syria makes himself involved, that will give the USA upper hand to pressurize the Syria more by sanctioning them, by sanctioning their economy, which is already broken. The Syrian economy is already broken. If another sanctions will came up from the from USA side, then its economy will fall apart. That is why Russia should not involve the Syrian forces in Ukrainian war. So the Russia have to take these war into a responsible manner, because Russia already lacking its number of allies in the United Nations and the other important forums. So that is why Russia have to take these things very seriously. They should not involve the Syrian forces in Ukrainian war. Now we will come up with an yes. Why yes? Because the USA has already used the Pakistan and unofficially to defeat the Russia in Afghanistan. The Pakistani ISI was actually directly involved in defeating the Russian forces when the Russia attacked Afghanistan in 1980s. They were used by the USA. The Pakistani ISI was used by the USA CIA. So by using the Syrian forces as a proxy is not harmful act anyway. If the USA raised these kind of questions in any international forum, the Russia can defend themselves by saying that there are no official record of recruiting the Syrian officials, or they can really raise the Afghan issue altogether to counter the USA. That is why I am saying that the USA, as the USA did this kind of thing, the Russia should not get involved in these kind of things. Then this will going to be a bigger issue in the international forums, and the Russian sides is lacking this kind of arguments because they are not democracy. They are kind of an autocratic nation. That is why they have to avoid these kind of things, these kind of moves. Finally, my say is the Russia have to stop this madness right now. They have to settle a deal with the Ukraine to resolve the differences that actually started when the NATO membership was offered to the Ukraine, knowing that the Russian global security will be threatened. But instead of these kind of things, the USA actually denied these kind of things. They said that if we will going to involve the Ukraine in NATO, then that will going to deter the Russia. What for? Russia was not doing anything. Russia was not doing anything. If the USA backed them up by not involving them, then this would not happen in the first hand. The Russia and the Ukraine already started discussion on how to resolve this kind of issue. They have already discussed 3 times in a row. Hopefully they will going to come up with solid solutions. As I said, the Russia have to stop this kind of brutality, because the Russia has already launched more than 625 missiles consisting of mix of short and the medium range ballistic missiles, surface to air missiles and the cruise missiles. The missile using the missiles is going to is already harmed so many Ukrainian populations. This already killed so many innocent Ukrainian populations. So Russia have to stop. And the no and on the other side, the USA have to stop poking the European nations to take the fight against the Russia. USA already have 1 lakh troops in the Europe. Despite of that, they are sending more troops to the European nations. Besides, the USA sends the $1 billion to the Ukraine to help the Ukrainian government. If the USA is really interested to fight for the Ukraine, then they have to jump into this war directly. They are not jumping into this war directly, but they are provoking Ukrainian population to fight against the Russia, which is no match to the Russian military systems and the Russian military. But instead of that, Russia is poking again and again to poke the bear. Here in this conflict, the nation have to understand that they are all alone. The nation do not have the friends. So to protect themselves from any kind of enmity around them, they have to do it by their own. This is the lesson for all the nations, that what the USA do when something happen like this. USA always on the side of the Ukraine before the Russia attacked them. But after the Russia attacked them, USA just took the sideline and came up with a sanction system. And this might not going to help the Ukraine at all. So in this case, the Ukraine should behave like a neutral nation. Russia was only asking that the Ukraine should not be involved. Ukraine should not get themselves involved into a NATO. If they were not adamant to accept the NATO's membership, then this would not happen in the first hand. So Ukraine have to understand that what they have to do. So this is it. And the question is, our first question is, in which sea Snake Island is located? The first option is Black Sea, second option is Azov Sea, third option is Caspian Sea, fourth is Baltic Sea. The second question is, which is the longest river in Ukraine? The first option is Danube, second option is Donetsk, third option is Dnieper, fourth option is Dniester. If anyone have any questions about this topic, you can mail me to my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.